I went to an old factory last weekend. I'm a 35-year-old freelance photographer. I love exploring forgotten places. This factory looked perfect. It was creepy, with broken windows and peeling paint. I knew I had to photograph it. I thought I'd spend a few hours inside, capturing all its stories. But I never stopped thinking about what happened there till I stepped through the doorway and into the main area. It was quiet. The air felt colder. As I moved deeper inside, I saw dust swirling in the beams of sunlight. Then I heard it faint echoes of laughter. I figured it was just the wind. I shook it off and aimed my camera at an old machine. But even then, I felt uneasy that as I wandered around, I realized the laughter had faded. A weird feeling washed over me. It felt like someone was watching. I told myself it was just my imagination. I kept snapping photos, but something still felt off. I noticed shadows moving at the edge of my vision. I turned quickly, but there was nothing. My heart raced. Maybe it was just the lighting that I walked into a dark hallway. My footsteps echoed. I saw small footprints on the ground, definitely not mine. A chill ran down my back. I wasn't alone. I paused, listening, but all I heard was my breath. It made me uneasy. But curiosity drove me forward, that's when I saw something. A shadow flitted past. I swung around with my camera ready, but nothing was there. My heart pounded. Part of me wanted to turn back, but I pushed myself to move on. I thought maybe I'd find something interesting to photograph. The thought made me anxious, every room felt colder. The laughter returned, faint but clear. It sent shivers through me. I glanced around at the peeling walls and dusty floors. Questions rushed into my mind. Where was the laughter coming from? Who else could be in there with me? I pushed through one last room. The floorboards creaked under my feet. The laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination again, but it felt real. I turned to leave, feeling more scared than ever. I decided to take one last look around. As I stepped outside, that strange sensation followed me. I turned back. The factory loomed behind me like a dark shadow, filled with unanswered questions. Days passed, but I still felt uneasy. What really happened that day? The laughter haunted me in my sleep. Sometimes, I wonder if the laughter was real. I try to shake it off. The thing is, I can't help but think there was something I missed. It didn't make sense, but it felt important. I don't plan to go back. But the image of that factory lingers in my mind. I still think of it often. Days went by since my visit to the factory, but the unease never left me. I found myself thinking about returning. The need to understand that laughter gnawed at me. I tried to distract myself with other projects, other places, but nothing ever seemed to hold my attention. That factory had cast a spell over me. Finally, I decided to visit my friend Alex. He was also a photographer and shared my love for exploring forgotten places. Maybe he'd have some insights or at least take my mind off things. As I recounted my experience, his eyes widened. People say that place is haunted, he said. You know that, right? I shook my head. I had heard stories about urban legends before, but I never paid attention. I just wanted to take pictures, I replied, trying to sound dismissive. He leaned in closer. There were stories of kids getting lost in there. Some say they could hear laughter too. I felt a chill run down my spine. You don't seriously believe that stuff, do you? I managed to ask. Think about it. You heard laughter and saw shadows. It's not just your imagination. His words made me uneasy. I was starting to question my own experience. What if the laughter meant something more? I could feel my mind spiraling into a mix of fear and curiosity. Do you want to go back? Alex asked suddenly. I hesitated. Part of me screamed no. The other part was desperate for answers. What if we found something? I said, unsure if I was trying to convince him or myself. That night, we made plans to go back to the factory. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. It was a bad idea, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to know more. When we arrived the next day, the sun was just setting. Shadows stretched across the ground, and the factory stood there, just as I left it. Only this time, I had company. My heart raced. We stepped inside. The air felt heavy, like a blanket pressing down on us. The quiet was oppressive. I could tell Alex felt it too. He glanced around nervously, his camera held tightly in his hands. "Let's stick together," he said, trying to lighten the mood. "We're just here for some photos, right?" I nodded, though my throat felt dry. We wandered deeper into the factory. The shadows danced along the walls, but this time, I was determined to keep my focus. I aimed the camera at a rusted conveyor belt and started snapping pictures. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker of movement. It wasn't just the shadows. I turned to look, and the laughter returned louder, clearer than before. It echoed through the empty halls and sent chills down my spine. "Did you hear that?" Alex asked, his voice tense. "Yeah," I whispered, suddenly unsure. That's when I saw it. Just at the edge of the dark hallway we were about to enter, a shadow stood. It was faint, almost human-like, but it didn't look right. My heart raced again, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to move closer or run away. "Who is there?" I called, my voice shaky. Silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. But then, the laughter burst out once more, louder and mixed with a sense of urgency that felt as if it were beckoning us. "Let's get out of here," Alex urged, edging back toward the exit. I hesitated, but the laughter drew me in. A surge of determination took hold. "No," I said, feeling a strange courage. "Wait. We need to find out what this is." But before I could take a step forward, a loud crash echoed behind us. My heart dropped. Something was coming. "Run!" Alex shouted. And we did, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for us in the dark, something that was going to trap us in that factory forever. We sprinted through the factory, adrenaline surging through my veins. I didn't look back. The eerie laughter bounced off the walls, creating a haunting melody that filled the air. It was taunting us, drawing us in closer. I could barely hear Alex's heavy breathing next to me. "Leave the camera," he yelled, but I gripped it tighter, convinced that I might capture something important, something that could explain all of this. We reached a large room filled with rusted machinery and broken windows. The fading light poured in, filling the space with an orange glow. But the shadows remained stubbornly dark. It felt like they were watching us. "Stay close," Alex said as we halted to catch our breath. My heart hammered in my chest. We leaned against a wall, trying to find our bearings. But as the laughter faded, something shifted in the room. I felt a sudden chill. My eyes darted around, searching the shadows. Then, I noticed a silhouette moving against the far wall. It was small, almost youthful, darting in and out of the light. "Alex," I whispered, pointing towards the movement. He squinted, leaning forward. "What is that?" "Maybe a person." I felt a knot forming in my stomach. If there were kids here, then the stories were true. But as the figure stepped into the light, I gasped. It was not a person at all. It was a doll, a tattered, weather-beaten doll hanging from a chain just above the floor. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and its eyes seemed to follow us. It was unsettling, but there was more. What caught my attention wasn't the doll itself but the faint laughter that echoed again, seemingly coming from it. Alex moved closer, picking up the camera. "This is creepy," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. In that moment, I felt another presence, a feeling that we were not alone. I turned sharply when I heard a loud bang behind us. My heart raced again. "Let us keep moving," I urged, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was trailing us. We ventured deeper into the factory, the sounds of our footsteps resonating through the empty space. With every step, the laughter returned, now mixing with soft whispers that filled the cold air. The whispers were unintelligible but chilling. "Did you hear that?" I asked, unease blooming in my chest. "Yeah. It's like they want us to follow." Alex and I exchanged worried glances. It felt like we were walking into a trap, one that I had unwittingly led us into. The laughter grew louder, almost encouraging us. We approached a doorway, half open and shrouded in darkness. The air around it felt thick, daunting. "Should we?" I asked, feeling a surge of doubt. "We have to," Alex replied. "The mystery can't end here." Taking a breath, we took a step forward. Everything changed in an instant. The laughter turned into a cacophony, almost like a chorus of children, echoing through the halls. Then we saw them. Shadows of young children, darting just out of sight, laughing and playing a game we couldn't quite understand. But there was something off about them, something wrong. They were distorted, flickering like a broken video, and they seemed to be leading us deeper into the factory. "Do you see that?" I asked in a shaky voice. "Yes," Alex replied, terrified yet enthralled. Suddenly, the shadows lunged towards us, and I felt a cold hand clasp around my wrist, pulling me back into the darkness. I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the laughter. This wasn't just a game any longer. This felt like a warning. They didn't want us to leave. The grip on my wrist tightened, paralyzing me. Panic surged through me as I realized I had to break free. In a desperate move, I jerked my arm away. The hand was gone in an instant, vanishing like mist. I whipped around, searching for whatever had touched me, but the shadows were again just shadows. "Did you see that?" I gasped, panting. "Yeah. We need to get out of here." Alex's voice shook, and I could see fear etched on his face. We both stood in the doorway, looking deeper into the factory. The laughter had shifted again, now it echoed with a sinister undertone. "Where do we even go?" I asked, feeling trapped. The shadows danced along the walls, moving in patterns that felt deliberate, taunting us. "Maybe we should go back," Alex suggested hesitantly, but the thought of retreating into that dark corridor was enough to make my skin crawl. Before I could answer, a loud crash sounded behind us, followed by a series of mechanical whirs. We turned to see one of the old machines sputtering back to life, the gears groaning loudly as if waking from a long slumber. It rattled ominously, and I felt a chill wash over me. "Let us check it out," I said, surprising myself with my own bravado. Perhaps I was hoping to find answers more than escape. We approached the machine cautiously. The chaotic movement seemed almost alive, a metal beast trying to shake off its years of dust. As we got closer, something shiny caught my eye. Cluttered among the scraps and dust were photos, old, faded Polaroids that I picked one up. The image was blurry, but it was unmistakable. A group of children, faces lit with joy, standing in front of a different factory, this factory, but years ago. They were holding the exact doll we saw earlier, and an eerie smile stretched across each face. "Look at this," I said, my voice trembling as I showed it to Alex. "What does it mean?" he asked, eyes wide. I don't know." My heart sank. Was this place connected to them somehow? Before I could ponder it further, the laughter grew louder, becoming deafening. The shadows morphed, kindling into shapes that resembled those children in the photo, the ones who had once played carefree in this haunted factory. "They're here!" I screamed, as the chilling laughter turned into shrieks. I could no longer tell if it was from the shadows or from my own fear. Suddenly, the doll appeared at the base of the machine, swinging slightly in the draft. My instincts kicked in, and I dropped the photograph, racing toward it. If this doll held any significance for the shadows, I had to take it. "Be careful," Alex shouted, but I could barely hear him over the chaos. I reached for the doll just as the shadows surged toward me, their forms now fully defined. Faces twisted in anguish, mouths wide with silent screams. Grabbing the doll, I felt an electric shock of energy course through me. The shadows froze, their laughter turning into whispers that rapidly faded. "What did you do?" Alex yelled, jolting me back to the moment. "I don't know," I shouted back, gripping the doll tightly. It felt warm against my skin, but I could sense something dark lingering around it. Suddenly, the factory's lights flickered ominously, and then everything went dark. My stomach dropped as I lost sight of Alex beside me. "Alex!" I called out, uncertainty flooding my voice that I stumbled forward, clutching the doll. The air grew thick, heavy with a presence that felt like it was just behind me. Then I heard it, a soft whisper, low and grave. "You shouldn't have taken her." My heart raced as I turned, feeling a new dread wash over me. I was sure of one thing now: whatever darkness lingered in this factory wanted the doll back. And it wasn't done with us yet. I squinted into the blackness, straining to catch any movement. "Alex?" My voice echoed back to me, swallowed by the darkness. I felt utterly alone. Gripping the doll tighter, I could almost hear its heartbeat matching mine. Then, a faint glow emerged off to my left. It pulsed rhythmically, like the embers of a dying fire. I carefully moved toward it, my breath hitching at every creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. As I got closer, the glow sharpened into the shape of a doorway, just barely ajar. "Alex?" I called again, more desperate now. There was no answer. Just the whispering shadows. I took a deep breath, heart racing, and pushed the door open. It creaked loudly, the sound reverberating unnervingly in the silence. I stepped inside and was enveloped by a musty air filled with an unsettling sensation. The small room was cluttered with old toys and broken machinery. But it wasn't the mess that caught my attention. It was a mirror hanging crookedly on the wall, its surface fogged over. The faint glow I had seen was emanating from it. Approaching cautiously, I peered into the glass. At first, I saw only my own reflection, wide-eyed and terrified. Then, something shifted behind me. I whirled around, heart in my throat. Nothing. Just shadows. When I turned back to the mirror, my heart raced again. The reflection wasn't just me. It showed a glimpse of Alex in another room over, looking just as scared as I felt. He was surrounded by those sinister shadows, their shapes creeping closer. "Alex!" I screamed, thumping the mirror's surface with frustration, my fists clenched. The sound resonated through the room like a bell. Then the reflection changed. The shadows shifted and twisted, and suddenly the room behind Alex exploded into color, bright and lively, filled with the laughter of children. It looked almost like a birthday party with balloons, cake, and cheerful faces. The joy was palpable, but it quickly shifted to a dark scene, just as those faces blurred into horror. My throat tightened. "What is happening?" The whispers echoed again, louder this time. "You have to choose." I staggered back from the mirror in disbelief. What choice? What were they asking of me? Suddenly, an unseen force pushed me toward the mirror. I stumbled back, the doll slipping from my grip as I fought against whatever was trying to drag me in. My heart raced as I concentrated on holding on to reality. I couldn't let it take me. As I regained my balance, I spotted the doll lying on the floor beside me. Its vibrant colors seemed to glow in the dark like a beacon. I dove for it and grasped it tightly, the warmth radiating into my hands. And in that moment, everything changed. The room filled with those children's laughter again, but this time it sounded joyous, not haunting. Their faces appeared in the mirror, bright and innocent. But when I looked into their eyes, I saw questions and pleading. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. "What do you want from me?" Suddenly, the shadow figures surged forward, reaching for me. The laughter turned back into screams, echoing all around me. I darted out of the room, not daring to look back. All I could think about was finding Alex. But as I bolted down the corridor, the whispers swirled again. You have to make a choice before it's too late. Will he be there? Will we get out? Or will I be trapped forever in this nightmare? The fear gripped me tight as I raced into the depths of that cursed factory, the heavy weight of the shadows chasing behind me. I stumbled down the corridor, the shadows flitting at the corners of my vision. The whispers grew louder, curling around me like smoke. You have to choose. Their breathless urgency made my skin crawl. I burst into another room, this one wider and filled with broken windows. Moonlight splashed across the floor, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. I paused, searching for any sign of Alex. Where are you? I called, my voice trembling, but there was only silence that I pressed my back against the wall, trying to steady my racing heart. The doll felt solid in my grasp, a lifeline in the chaos. I took a moment to catch my breath and looked around. The room was a forgotten playhouse. Old dolls were scattered everywhere, their glassy eyes staring blankly as if they witnessed unspeakable things. That's when I saw it. A shadow moved across the far wall. My stomach dropped. Alex? I edged forward, the shattered glass crunching under my feet. The shadow flickered and faded, swallowed by the darkness again. That eye in the corner, a rocking horse creaked on its own, swaying mysteriously. I blinked, trying to convince myself it was just the wind. But instinct told me something else was at play. I stepped closer, hoping to find a clue or a hint. Just then, another shadow darted across the opposite wall, this time followed by a soft giggle. My blood ran cold. It wasn't Alex's voice. Who's there? I demanded, my voice louder than I intended. The giggles turned into laughter, echoing around the room. It was high-pitched and joyful in a way that sent chills down my spine. I backed away from the sound, feeling cornered, like prey in the presence of a predator. Then I noticed that the laughter seemed to be coming from the large mirror on the far side of the room. It was different from the one I'd seen before, clear and pristine, with a frame carved from dark wood. I felt an irresistible pull toward it. That I approached slowly, curiosity battling my fear. As I drew nearer, the reflection began to swirl, and suddenly I was staring at a scene that made my heart pound. It was a group of children, running and playing in a park. Their joy radiated, but I quickly realized they weren't just kids. They were the same faces I'd seen in the other mirror. Then the scene shifted. The children stopped suddenly, their laughter dying in an instant. They all turned to the sides, gazing at something off-screen, their faces twisted in fear. I felt a cold shiver creep down my spine. Please, I whispered, clutching the doll tighter as my eyes darted back to the darkness behind me. The laughter had stopped, but I could feel a presence, a weight in the air, and that's when I heard a voice. Soft and low, it whispered my name, "Come play with us." The breath caught in my throat. My pulse thundered in my ears as I spun around. Shadows brushed against me, swirling and coalescing into something more substantial. I could see figures forming, their grotesque forms barely illuminated by the moonlight spilling in from the windows. Run! A fragment of my mind screamed, but I was frozen, captured by the haunting call of the mirror. Then everything went dark. The light faded, leaving me in total blackness. Panic flooded my veins. I was no longer in the room, no longer tethered to reality. I felt myself slipping, like I was being drawn into their world. The mirror still called, but at what cost? As shadows wrapped around me, I suddenly understood. The choice wasn't only for me, it was for Alex too. I gasped as the darkness lifted, and suddenly I was back in the room, the shadows swirling less menacingly around me. I found myself collapsed on the floor, panting. The mirror stood before me, calm and still, as if nothing had happened. But the laughter was still there, echoing in the recesses of my mind. That I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. I felt out of place in this house of lost dreams. I had to find Alex. Alex! I yelled again, desperation tightening my chest. My voice sounded hollow in the empty space. I took a step toward the rocking horse. The moonlight glinted off its chipped paint, and I thought I saw something glimmer beneath it. What if there was more to discover here? I knelt down, pushing the toy aside. My fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. My breath quickened as I pulled it out. It was an old key. It felt heavy in my hand, the metal cold and rusted. I remembered a locked door at the end of the corridor. Maybe it opened something important. I needed a plan. Just as I stood up, the laughter returned, louder now. It felt like a taunt. Panic threatened to overtake me again. "Shut up!" I shouted into the darkness, but the echo of my voice faded quickly. Taking a deep breath, I forced my feet to move. I hurried to the door at the end of the corridor, my mind screaming that every moment counted. The shadows seemed to shift with me, swirling like a tide eager to drag me back into its depths. When I reached the door, I hesitated. The key felt almost alive in my palm. What if it led to something terrible? But the thought of Alex kept me focused. I slid the key into the lock. It turned with a loud click that made me jump, the door creaked open, and I stepped inside. It was a small storage room, filled with dusty furniture and old boxes. A faint light flickered in the corner, revealing a small lantern. I moved toward it, heart pounding. The light cast eerie shadows that danced across the walls. Just as I picked up the lantern, I heard a sound behind me. It was soft at first, like the rustle of fabric. I spun around, clutching the lantern tight. A figure stood in the doorway, shrouded in shadow. My breath caught in my throat. "Who is there?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The figure stepped closer, and I could see it was a child, no older than 6. His wide eyes were filled with an unsettling mix of innocence and something darker. "You found us," he said, a smile creeping onto his face. My stomach twisted. "Where's Alex? What do you want?" He tilted his head, the smile growing wider. "To play with us. Don't you want to play?" And just like that, I understood. This wasn't a game. It was a trap, and I had to choose between saving Alex or succumbing to whatever this place wanted. As the child stepped closer, shadows began to swirl around him, taking shape, too many shapes. I felt a surge of panic. "No!" I shouted, stumbling backward. The lantern flickered and dimmed around me, casting the room into darkness once more. I could hear laughter again, echoing off the walls, but it was faster now, more frantic. I realized then that whatever was happening was just beginning. This was a choice I had to make, and I had to make it fast. I backed away, my heart racing as that child inched closer, the laughter growing more chaotic around us. The shadows throbbed, alive and relentless, and I stumbled over a dusty chair, falling to the floor. I had to get out. I took a deep breath, stood, and sprinted past the frozen figure. The door behind me slammed shut. My heart sank as I fought against the panic threatening to consume me. I pressed my palms against the door, but it wouldn't budge. The laughter twisted into something sharp and mocking. I was trapped. "Alex!" I shouted again, desperation gushing from my throat like a flood. I needed to think. I glanced around the storage room. There had to be a way out. The lantern flickered beside me, casting flickering light on an old trunk. I rushed over, hoping for something useful. The lid creaked open to reveal old toys, broken dolls, and a rusted jack-in-the-box. My stomach turned as I realized they all looked aged, as if they had been untouched for decades. That I shoved the toys aside, searching for any hidden compartments. Then I saw it. A small, weathered box tucked away in the corner inside the trunk. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It felt oddly warm against my skin, almost as if it had a heartbeat of its own. That I opened the box, revealing a collection of faded photographs. My breath hitched. In one, a girl with blonde pigtails smiled brightly, and standing next to her was Alex, looking just as he had before he vanished from our reality. The photo hadn't aged like the toys. It felt fresh. "Alex!" I breathed, flipping through the pictures frantically. But in each one, he looked farther away from me, his eyes clouded with an unrecognizable sadness. The final photograph showed him standing in front of a door, the same one I'd just unlocked, yet it was closed in the picture. My pulse quickened. I looked back at the trunk, but now the toys seemed to shift, closing in around me. Shadows drifted toward the trunk, drawn to the box. The laughter crescendoed and filled the room. I needed to get back to that door. I slammed the box shut, feeling a surge of defiance. "Get away from me!" I yelled, my voice cutting through the madness. I backed toward the door, determined to face whatever was on the other side. As I reached for the doorknob, I hesitated. "Open!" I commanded, and to my surprise, the door swung open on its own. On the other side was a darkened hall, the kind of place that felt alive with possibilities and dangers. I stepped outside, ready to confront whatever awaited me. Then everything changed. The door slammed behind me, and the laughter stopped, replaced by a chilling silence. I turned back, my heart pounding. The hallway stretched endlessly, and a figure appeared at the end. It was the same child, but he was no longer smiling. His eyes shimmered with an unsettling hunger. "Are you ready to play?" he asked in a voice that echoed in my bones. I felt the air thicken around me, an urgent pull toward the figure. I stumbled, uncertain. I realized then that the game was only beginning, and I had no idea how to win. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest at the sight of the child. His presence felt magnetic, like he was drawing me closer while I wanted nothing more than to run away. He cocked his head, studying me with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. "What do you mean play?" I managed to stutter, forcing myself to take a step back. The hallway seemed to stretch and twist, each second feeling drawn out as the child's grin faded further. He took a step forward. "You'll see. But first, you have to find what is lost." "What is lost?" My voice wavered. I had a feeling he meant something more than just a toy or a photograph. He pointed behind me, his finger a bony, skeletal appendage. I turned to look, finding a door at the end of the hallway that hadn't been there a moment ago. Troubled by the sudden change, I felt an irresistible pull toward it. "Is that it?" The child's laughter echoed, an unsettling sound that made my stomach clench. "You have to find out for yourself." Before I could respond, he vanished from sight. Panic surged inside me. I glanced back to the dark hallway, my instincts screaming at me to run. But that door loomed, mysterious and inviting. I took a hesitant step forward, drawn by an unseen force. As I approached, I noticed a small note pinned to the door with a rusty nail. It read, "Knock 3 times to begin." My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to turn back, to escape this nightmare, but I couldn't shake the feeling I had to see it through. I raised my fist, my hand trembling as I knocked. The sound echoed painfully loud against the silence. I knocked again, each thud resounding like a war drum. By the third knock, the door shuddered, the wood groaning with a life of its own. Suddenly, it swung open, revealing a dark room that smelled faintly of mildew and dust. The flickering light from a single bulb revealed old furniture draped in sheets, casting ghostly shapes across the walls. My heart raced as I stepped over the threshold. "Welcome," a raspy voice whispered from the shadows. I froze on the spot, scanning the darkness. "Who is there?" I called. A figure stepped into the light. It was a woman, her eyes sunken deep into her skull. The moment she smiled, I felt a chill wash over me. "You seek what is lost, don't you?" I opened my mouth to answer, but my voice caught. I realized I didn't even know what I was really searching for. "Yes, you do," she replied, her tone almost conspiratorial. "You're looking for Alex, aren't you?" My stomach dropped. How did she know? "He is in danger, just like you are," she continued. "But time is running out." Before I could ask another question, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. I may have screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the void. Then, just as quickly, the lights returned, illuminating the empty room. The woman was gone. A sharp pain gripped my chest as realization set in. This was bigger than just silly games or lost toys, that I was in the middle of something I couldn't understand. Something dangerous. That's when I noticed it, a small, wooden box sitting in the corner. My heart raced as I approached it. I had to know if it held the answers I desperately sought. I reached out, but before I could touch it, the door slammed shut behind me, locking me inside. The echo of the child's laughter returned, now a haunting melody weaving through my mind. That I glanced around, frantic. Whatever this place was, it was no longer about finding Alex. It felt like it was about to consume me too. And I wasn't sure how much time I had left. I stumbled back, the weight of the shadows closing in around me. The laughter echoed in my mind, a cacophony of urgency and fear that twisted through the air. No, no, I muttered to myself, trying to regroup. I had to find a way out. Finding Alex was the only thing that mattered. The wooden box loomed in front of me, tempting me with a pull I couldn't ignore. I darted toward it, the whispers intensifying as if the very walls had ears. I fumbled with the latch, my fingers trembling, and swung it open. Inside were a handful of photographs, their edges yellowed and curling. I froze. One of the images showed a group of children at play, laughter radiating from their faces, but in the corner of the photo, a flickering shadow lurked, a dark figure watching them. It occurred to me then that this factory was not a mere ruin. It was a conduit for something far more sinister, an energy that fed off despair and children's laughter. I felt a knot form in my stomach, an instinct that told me these children had been trapped, tied to this haunting echo of their past joy. And Alex, a loud crash rattled the room as the door behind me burst open, sending a rush of cold air swirling inside. My heart raced. I turned, half expecting to see the shadows spilling in, but stood instead with shocked disbelief. Alex stood there, disheveled but alive. "You found me!" he yelled, relief flooding his voice. "Alex!" I ran to him, but uncertainty still hovered over me like a thick fog. "What happened? Are you okay?" "I don't know," he replied, his eyes darting around. "It's all a blur." I heard laughter, then dark things came after me. His voice trembled. I was drawn to it. "Me too. But we can't stay here." I motioned toward the open door behind him. "We have to get out. Now." With that, the shadows around us surged, coiling like snakes ready to strike. "They don't want us to leave," I shouted, panic screeching in my throat as the laughter swelled around us. Together, we sprinted down the hallway, dodging the reaching hands of shadows as we sought a way out. I could feel their grip, cold and unrelenting, trying to pull us back into their world. "Over here." I directed Alex toward an illuminated exit further down. As we pushed through a swarm of shadowy figures, the laughter morphed into high-pitched screams, drowning out my thoughts. We barreled toward the light, our hearts pounding in tandem. Just as we neared the exit, a wave of darkness rushed forward, bearing down on us with a deafening roar. "Run!" I shouted. We lunged through the door, collapsing outside just as the shadows tried to envelop us one last time. We tumbled onto the grass, panting heavily, hearts racing, disoriented but free. The factory loomed behind us like a dark memory slowly fading. We scrambled to our feet and turned, watching the structure a sinister silhouette against a purpling sky, still and foreboding. "What was that place?" Alex gasped, looking back. "I don't know," I confessed, still feeling the remnants of the energy around us. "But I think it was feeding off us. Those children, they weren't just in our heads." The laughter lingered in the air, a mocking echo that we couldn't shake. We didn't speak as we walked away, the night closing in. The factory seemed to lean toward us, whispering secrets we would never understand. I couldn't shake the haunting image of those children's faces, or the knowledge that their laughter and screams were intertwined with our own fear that I moved to a different city a week later, but I could still hear the remnants of that laughter. Sometimes I find myself wondering about Alex, especially on nights when shadows creep at the edges of my vision, whispering strange promises of play. I wonder about the factory and the stories it held, the children lost within, and whatever darkness still inhabited those walls. Perhaps some mysteries were never meant to be solved.